Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in-depth into my wide receiver start or sit decisions for week number 7 of the 2022 fantasy football season. Inside of today's video, I'll be going in-depth into every single matchup from Thursday Night Football all the way until Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether I believe you should start or sit the notable wide receivers in all of those games. But before we could get on into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. And if you do want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. I would also like to ask that if you guys have any questions about week number 7, doesn't even have to relate with the wide receiver position, please make sure you ask down below in the comment section. I love to talk to you guys down there. So without further ado, let's get into today's Week 7 wide receiver start or sit decisions. We begin with Thursday Night Football, the New Orleans Saints at the Arizona Cardinals. In this game, we'll see the return game from suspension for DeAndre Hopkins. Now, this game would have been incredibly interesting to break down had Hollywood Brown been healthy to play in this game. Obviously, last week he got injured. We thought that potentially that injury could be season-ending, but it was reported yesterday on Monday that he will miss around 6 games of the season. Obviously, that is a decent chunk of the fantasy football regular season, and obviously, that hurts your fantasy football team, but it is positive to know that Hollywood Brown will be returning. But right now, DeAndre Hopkins is going to slide in as the clear number 1 wide receiver in this offense, and this Arizona Cardinals offense has not been very good. They have been a humongous disappointment from what most thought they would have been going into the season. Now, the question is, will DeAndre Hopkins be able to fill this crater of a hole that this Arizona Cardinals team has? This team has been a fucking disaster this season. And I said this in the running back start sit video, but it feels like if they lose this game to the New Orleans Saints at home in prime time, that Cliff Kingsbury could potentially not be able to get in the building on Friday. His ass might be grass. And I genuinely think that could be the case. But breaking down the wide receivers, Kyler Murray loves to throw the ball to DeAndre Hopkins. This guy is coming back to an excellent situation. Obviously, it sucks that Hollywood Brown is hurt, but this gives DeAndre Hopkins even more of an opportunity to firmly grasp the wide receiver 1 role in this offense. I think D-Hop has a huge return matchup. The other receivers in Arizona, Rondale Moore should slot in as the number 2 wide receiver. This matchup is pretty interesting. The Saints defense isn't really all that great, so I think Rondale Moore could have a pretty decent showing. Robbie Anderson was traded after that altercation on the sidelines on Sunday's game with the Carolina Panthers. Him and I believe the wide receiver coach or the offensive coordinator kind of were chewing at each other, and then eventually the coach said, "You know what, pal? Get out of here. You're fired. Get the fuck out of here." And then he was traded in the morning. So while Robbie Anderson could be an interesting piece a couple of weeks from now, especially if Rondale Moore doesn't work out, right now, Robbie Anderson doesn't have a role in your starting lineup. Chris Olave did miss last week's game action with a concussion that he suffered in week number 6, or in week number 5, I should say. But now we're pretty far away from that. I think he could definitely return in this game. Michael Thomas is being the typical Michael Thomas of the last couple of years. He's hurt, seems like he's going to come back, then he ends up missing. Until I see that he's fully practicing, there's really no way that I could dub Michael Thomas as a start. I honestly don't even think he's going to play, considering the game is on Thursday. Jarvis Landry's banged up, so Marquez Callaway would be the number 2 receiver in that situation, or maybe Traquan Smith. I would just stay away from that, if I'm being honest with you. So Chris Olave, DeAndre Hopkins, and Rondale Moore are all starts in this matchup. Again, we are assuming that Chris Olave suits up. Next up, we got the Cleveland Browns at the Baltimore Ravens, and we will keep this extremely short, keep this simple. Amari Cooper, really, to start off the season, wasn't looking the best, but recently, this guy has really caught on for the Cleveland Browns. The Browns offense has looked incredible. Last week, obviously, up against the New England Patriots, things didn't go very well, but that Patriots defense has really stepped up recently. They've looked like one of the best defenses in all of the National Football League, so the Browns struggle. It is what it is. 9-inch Nicholas Chubb has an awful game. Amari Cooper plays pretty decent, though. But now, This week, they are playing up against the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens defense in the second half of just about every game completely and utterly folds like one of those tables that the Buffalo Bills fans jump through. They crumble mightily in the second half. Amari Cooper is the clear number one wide receiver weapon in this offense, and I think he could have a field day up against the Baltimore Ravens. For the other Cleveland Browns, we got DPJ, Donovan Peoples-Jones, David Bell, but neither of them, again, it really is Amari Cooper, David Njoku, and then the rest of the guys. There's going to be the Kareem Hunt games, of course, but besides that, it's really just Amari Cooper and David Njoku catching passes. So with Jacoby Brissett, maybe things change with Deshaun Watson when he eventually returns, but right now, and that return's coming close. It's coming up. Donovan Peoples-Jones and David Bell are going to be sits for me. For the Baltimore Ravens, I don't think Rashad Master-Bateman is going to end up suiting up. Even if he does, I want to see what he does in that return game before I want to roll him out there, because speed is so important for Rashad Bateman, and he's coming back from a foot injury, and maybe the speed isn't the same. Devin Duvernay is a little bit interesting. Don't really want to start him. Demarcus Robinson. They bring in Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson is going to have one big game this year. I tweeted that out. He's going to have one game. Follow me at Notorious FNTSY. He's going to have one game where he goes fucking bananas, where he gets like 25 plus points, and then he's never going to do it again. Everyone's going to pick him up off the waiver wire. They'll be like, holy shit, Lamar Jackson to Deshaun Jackson. And he's never going to do it again, but it is going to be incredibly funny because it will be a talking point after that game happens. I don't think it happens this week. I'm just saying I know it's going to happen as long as he stays on the team. Next up, we got the Buccaneers at the Carolina Panthers. In this game, I want to be starting both Mike Evans as well as Chris Godwin. Both of them kind of shit the bed in fantasy football last week. That Pittsburgh Steelers matchup on paper looked incredible. Without TJ Watt, that team just loses games. I think that was their first win ever when TJ Watt was hurt. The defense is so bad without TJ Watt, and TJ Watt's only one guy, and he just puts so much juice into this team. I don't know what it is, but he just does something to this defense to make them better. With that said, that defense looked pretty decent up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady was struggling mightily. Maybe he's too busy thinking about his fucking wife or something. That's no longer his wife, seemingly. But hey, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are still starts in this game. This reeks, you can smell it through the screen, of a bounce back performance. And if they don't bounce back here up against the Panthers, then something is seriously wrong. Something is incredibly wrong. Russell Gage is a sit for me. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are the clear number 1 and 2 targets on this team. And in reality, they're kind of 1A and 1B. They both have top 5 upside in any given week. DJ Moore saw the targets last week with PJ Walker, but PJ Walker basically only threw the ball 3 feet away from him. 3 fucking feet away from him. All the completions were around the line of scrimmage. And I think that's what pissed Robbie Anderson off so much. DJ Moore is the number 1 guy. Robbie Anderson being gone doesn't change my opinion at all. DJ Moore was targeted last week, but it still didn't work. It sucks to see. I was a big fan of DJ Moore. It seems like the quarterback position is always the reason why this guy struggles. I thought Baker Mayfield would be the savior for DJ Moore, but he wasn't. So right now, DJ Moore is a sit. I've seen people cut him off their fantasy teams, and I would not blame you if you did that. Shi Smith is going to be a sit for me, as is Terrace Marshall Jr. Next up, we move to the Atlanta Falcons at the Cincinnati Bengals. In this game, I'm going to play all 3 of the main Cincinnati Bengals wide receivers. Now, Titty Boy Higgins, going into that game, I was incredibly nervous because in that game the week prior, T. Higgins up against the Ravens, he was out there, but he didn't really do much. He wasn't targeted. Now, he had a decent game last week, but I was worried because it seemed like, hey, maybe they'll just say, hey, T. Higgins is going to play, and then T. Higgins was going to, quote-unquote, play, go out there, but he wouldn't be targeted, and I just worried about it. I said, you know what? Let's not fuck your week over by playing T. Higgins. Let's just bench him in most scenarios, and he had an okay game, right? He didn't have an amazing game. It was okay that we faded him, but he was a very confusing player last week. This week, you're starting him with supreme confidence. In that same game up against the Red Rifle Andy Dalton and the New Orleans Saints, Ja'Marr Chase finally had yet another big game of the season. Week 1, he was on fire, as was last week in week number 6. Ja'Marr Chase is a start-worthy wide receiver every single week, a must-start wide receiver every single week. Sure, he's had some down games, but at the end of the day, the upside is so immense, and Tyler, Boyd is going to be a start as well. Now, he's not an upper echelon start like T. Higgins or Ja'Marr Chase, but Tyler Boyd always has that upside to sneak his way into the end zone, and in this matchup up against the Falcons, I like him. Now, I understand last week the Falcons defense looked strong up against the 49ers, but at the end of the day, the 49ers were a little banged up in that game. They just didn't have their best showing. I think the Cincinnati Bengals crush the Atlanta Falcons, but the Falcons are sneaky. They're sneaky good, so maybe I'm wrong. Drizzy Drake London is going to be a start. He hasn't been as good recently. Kyle Pitts finally woke up. The dude was in a fucking hibernation for the first couple of weeks of the season. Drake London had an okay game. The Bengals defense hasn't really been that great this season, so I want to start Drake London, but he also is not one of those upper echelon starts. But I do think at some point in the season, maybe when things start really clicking for the Falcons offensively, maybe when Cordero Patterson returns, then Drake London might be a must-start wide receiver. Olamide Zaccheaus as well as Kaderil Hodge are going to be sits for me. Marcus Mariota does kind of spread the ball out to a lot of receivers, so it wouldn't surprise me if Hodge or Zaccheaus score a touchdown, but at the end of the day, do you really assume that's going to happen? Probably not. Next up, we got the Detroit Lions at the Dallas Cowboys. This game appears to be the return of Mr. Dickie Dak Prescott. Now, going into last week's game, there were people on the internet who probably are pretty dense, who were talking about, oh my god, is this a quarterback controversy? Look how good Cooper Rush has been playing. Cooper Rush hasn't been playing that good. The thing is, Cooper Rush just wasn't making a lot of mistakes. Didn't throw a single interception on the season until Sunday Night Football up against the Eagles. So he wasn't doing a lot to win. He just wasn't fucking anything up, right? The Cowboys team was good enough to where, hey, as long as he doesn't make a drastic error, they could win. Now, the Eagles is like running into a buzzsaw, but that completely eliminated anyone from talking about how there's a quarterback controversy. Anyone who even thought that was the case, to me, come on, pal, that was kind of a stupid idea to think about. Dallas Cowboys get Dickie Dak Prescott back. CeeDee Lamb, I would fire him out if I was the starting quarterback, so it doesn't really matter. CeeDee Lamb should be in for a pretty solid spot. This could elevate Michael Gallup to become a start-worthy wide receiver going forward. This week, I kind of just want to see how good Dak looks before I roll him out, but I'm definitely going to play CeeDee Lamb because even a somewhat healthy Dak Prescott could throw the ball to Mr. Lamb. Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. He did return prior to their bye in Week 6, played in that game against the Patriots. That was a complete and utter fucking dumpster fire game for the Lions. The New England Patriots kicked the dog piss out of them. It was not even close. They didn't score a single point offensively. The Lions, no bueno in that game, but I think they bounce back here up against the Cowboys. I don't think they're going to win against the Cowboys, but I think the offense looks much better. And when Amon-Ra St. Brown's healthy, you got to start him. The target share this guy might get in any given game is out of this world. Baby Chark, Baby Chark hasn't played in the last couple of weeks. He could return following the bye. If he does, I'm not starting him. Josh Reynolds is somewhat of a frisky start, an interesting start if Chark doesn't play, but I think both Reynolds and Chark are going to get hit by an RKO from out of nowhere the second Jameson Williams returns for the Lions, which seems like it's coming around the corner at this point. Michael Gallup, again, if you're a little bit risky, you can start him, but I would rather kind of see how Dak plays. And then Noah Brown with Michael Gallup and Dak back, or with Dak back, and how much he likes Michael Gallup. I'm not too sure Noah Brown really has fantasy relevancy, but before we pivot into our next game here, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our sponsor of today's video. They've been on my hat the entire video. They've been on your screen the entire video as well. BetMGM. And BetMGM is giving you a chance at $200 basically for free. All you have to do is click on the link in the video description or in the pinned comment, and all you got to do is place a pre-game money line bet on any NBA team of $10, and if there's a three-pointer hit in that game, your team doesn't even have to fucking win. You just bet $10 on any team money line, and if there's a three-pointer made in that game, which there will be, you will receive $200 in free bets. It's that simple. Take advantage of this offer when it comes up, right? These offers aren't going to last forever. And again, there's nothing complicated about this. You don't need your team to win or anything. All you need is for a three-pointer to be sunk in that game, which is a lock. So make sure you guys click on the link in the video description down below. You have to be a new user to BetMGM as well. And this offer is not available in every state. It is available in all states except NY, PA, MS, and Ontario. So make sure that you guys go ahead and check this out. Again, make sure you are a new user and click on the link in the video description or in the pinned comment. Again, there's not many more easier ways to win $200 than tonight betting on the money line of any of these teams. Again, all that has to happen is 1-3 be made in the game. Next up, we'll move to our next matchup on the docket of the New York Football Giants at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Christian Kirk has a pretty solid showing up against the Jaguars, or not up against the Jaguars. He's on the Jaguars, but he had a pretty solid showing last week for the Jaguars after, prior to that, having two games where he kind of stunk it up. Now, to start off the season, Christian Kirk was on fucking fire, NBA Jam style. He was flying. He was soaring. It was looking great for him, but then he had those down games and people start to panic, and rightfully so, right? If you have like 3 bad games in a row, then it's really time to panic, and you have to really start to think to yourself, how many more times can I start this guy before it's just too many and before he's fucked me over too many times? So I get why there was some concern. He bounces back last week for the Jaguars. The Giants defense has played incredibly good this season. I will give it to him, but Christian Kirk is such a big target in this offense. He is force-fed the ball by Trevor Lawrence that I still want to be starting him in this spot. Now, for the other Jaguars receivers, they have Zay Jones, who in a lot of matchups I would like, but again, I don't really think this is going to be a high-scoring tit-for-tat fucking air raid offense type of game where both teams are throwing for a lot of yards, so I don't want to start Zay Jones this week. In some deeper leagues, I find him to be a little bit interesting, but in your normal 10 or 12 team league, I think Zay Jones, even with all the bye weeks, is best left on your bench. Jamal Agnew has arisen like my cock in the morning, but at the end of the day, is Jamal Agnew really a guy you want to be starting every week? Probably not. For the Giants, Wan'Dale Robinson was a guy that's a hot commodity on the waiver wire. I do think you should be adding him, but before I jam him into my lineups, I want to see another solid week of production. But if you are down bad at wide receiver, there's definitely worse starts than Wan'Dale Robinson. Darius Slayton, he's just about meh. He seems like he could be the number 2 on the team, and I'm Rick James, bitch. Has kind of been screwed over by the fact that Wan'Dale and Slayton have looked pretty good. Seems like Kadarius Toney is requesting a trade. He wants out. So that opens the door for a great season of success for potentially Wan'Dale Robinson or Darius Slayton. Next up, we got the Indianapolis Colts at the Les Titans, and in division rivalry matchup here, we're going to be firing up only Colts wide receivers, those being Michael Pittman Jr. as well as Alec Pierce. Now, Alec Pierce's target share has been incredibly high over the last couple of weeks. It really does seem like Matty Ice Baby dun 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 loves throwing the ball to Alec Pierce. Now, he also likes Michael Pittman. I'm not saying that Michael Pittman is some fucking used up, washed up receiver on this team, but it is incredible to see the transition from the start of the season to the last couple of weeks for Alec Pierce as he has stepped up in this offense. Now, Matt Ryan had a pretty solid showing last week in that matchup up against the Jaguars. I thought it was pretty impressive when you look at the stat line at the end of the game, just how many yards he threw, as well as the fact that he didn't make those typical Matt Ryan mistakes that we're used to at this point in Indianapolis. And while I've kind of gotten on my knees and given the verbal gawk gawk 9,000, sucking this guy's cock off, sucking his cock off, Michael Pittman Jr. had 13 fucking receptions in that game up against the Jaguars. Michael Pittman is still a force to be reckoned with, and maybe, just maybe, the offensive line has gotten slightly better, so when Jonathan Taylor returns, he could look like Deion Jackson did last week. I'm going to be sitting Perry Campbell while he scored a tug last week. That seemed a little off, right? Doesn't seem like something Paris Campbell's going to be doing a bunch. Really seems like Pierce and Pittman are the guys. Then for the Les Titans, they just want to run the ball down the throat of any given team, and Ryan Tannehill spreads the ball out a ton. If I had to start one of these guys, it would be Woods. But again, Woods isn't really in that start-worthy camp for me. Same with Nick Westbrook, Ikayin, or Kyle Phillips for the Titans. Next up, we move to the Green Bay Packers, the Cheesehead Fucks, going up against the Washington Commanders. Now, after the Jets beat the Packers last week, Mr. Sauce Gardner put on that cheese head and was running and was like celebrating, basically dancing on the fucking metaphorical grave of the Packers. Alan Lazard slapped the hat off of him. It was, it is what it is. It was funny. But Alan Lazard and Romeo Dubes have looked pretty good this season. I understand that the Packers are kind of on fraud watch alert. Now, I'm not going to say they're fully fraud yet. I think I've already said that, but I'm not fully in the this team is fraudulent camp, but it seems like if the Packers play a somewhat worthy foe, like a team that might be able to play with them, they're going to lose. They were big, huge favorites last week and got fucking rolled up in a blunt and smoked. Now, the Commies defense, the Commanders defense, is pretty solid. But at the same time, if Aaron Rodgers isn't a fraud, if this team isn't a fraud, then Romeo Dubes and Al Lazard could both potentially be top 24 wide receivers, so I'm willing to start them. At this point, if I had to choose between one or the other, I would lean on Al Lazard. He just seems a little bit more consistent thus far through the first 7 games of the season, but that does make sense because Dubes are Dubs. I've called him Dubes a million times. People in the comments, Nick, it's not Dubs, you fucking idiot. I know. I don't know how to say his name. I've learned. I've read different ways. It is what it is. Romeo Dobbs, Dubes. Same thing, different day. Now the Commanders quarterback is going to be Taylor Heinicke. And Taylor Heinicke does this special thing that some quarterbacks does where they do the fuck it, blank is out there somewhere. For instance, Mahomes, when Tyreek was there, it was the fuck it, Tyreek Hill out there somewhere, and you just fucking close your eyes, Stevie Wonder style, and fucking throw a missile down the field, and then Tyreek Hill might be there wide open to catch it. He does this. Taylor Heinicke does the same thing for Terry McLaurin. Most of the time, not most of the time, some of the time, there's like triple coverage, and he's just like, YOLO, whatever, fuck it, I'm gonna throw it to McLaurin. And you know what? While it's not necessarily the best play for Heinicke to make, it makes McLaurin start worthy because now he has a quarterback that's just going to heave the fucking ball to him. And guess what? When you're throwing all these interceptions, it's probably because you're down and you're just heaving the ball. So that gives even more chances for them to throw the football at the end of the game. The Packers, I hope, have a bounce back spot here. I'm not a Packers fan by any means, but I think this is a bounce back spot for him. So I still do think Terry McLaurin is worthy of a start. Curtis Samuel definitely lower down for me with Taylor Heinicke. Jahan Dotson, I don't think is going to return in this game, but there is some looming possibilities of that. If he does return, I'm not starting him. And then Amari Rodgers, the Packers just have a million different receivers, but none of them are really notable aside from Alan Lazard and Romeo Dubes. And then, of course, Robert Tonyan. Next up, we move to the Jumbo Jets at the Denver Broncos. Now, the Jets have been on a roll since Zach Milfson returns. The Jets have been rolling these teams. Absolutely waffle stomping these motherfuckers. But at the end of the day, he's not just targeting one receiver. He throws it to his boy Braxton Berrios. He throws it to Davis. Sometimes he throws it to Elijah Moore, not much. Sometimes he throws it to Garrett Wilson. And that makes this wide receiver core extremely difficult to decipher because while Elijah Moore is, in my opinion, an incredibly talented receiver, a guy with a whole lot of upside in this offense, he's not really being used. And Elijah Moore even had to comment about this on Twitter because people are like, why the fuck is Elijah Moore not getting the ball? And he kind of danced around the what he was saying, but in reality, basically what he tweeted, now this isn't what he tweeted, but if you use your fucking noggin, you can decipher that what he's basically saying is that, hey, I need the ball. Basically is what he said. Now, he didn't say that. He used a bunch of different words. It was like 2 threads, 2 tweets. But in reality, it's like, hey, maybe Zach, pal, you MILF-loving bastard, maybe throw me the ball, pal. But hey, it is what it is. It's been working. The team's been winning. Breece Hall has been going crazy. Breece Hall has been butt-fucking these defenses without the use of any lube. But Davis, Moore, and Garrett Wilson are just left like a cuck, watching from the side. Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy are starts. Jerry Jeudy was targeted a bunch. Cortland Sutton did not have a good day up against the Chargers. I almost forgot the team names that played in that game because that game was so brutal. It's like that meme of the lady who's getting her eyes forced open to watch something. That's what it felt like. And the worst part of that game is that They didn't even let us go out softly. They didn't even let us go silently into the night with the game ending in 4 quarters. They made us watch. The overtime period, while it went fast in reality, felt like just I was getting my fingernails fucking ripped off and I was being like I was captured by someone and being tortured by Trevor in Grand Theft Auto 5. It was so bad. It was impossible to watch, and I watched the whole fucking thing because I love football, and I realized that, hey, Nick, while you don't like this game in June when you're waiting for football, you're like, oh my God, we're so close to September, you would literally you'd pay like $150 fucking pay-per-view to watch that bullshit. If it was live, I would. So, hey, I watch it. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, they all rely on Mr. Unlimited, Mr. Dangerous Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson has gotten on my last fucking nerve. I don't know what it is about him. And again, some people will be like, Nick, why are you just getting mad at his character? It is what it is, right? But when you're playing this bad and you post all this cringy shit on social media, I fucking hate this guy. And again, I get why you might want to start him against the Jets, right? Here's the bounce back narrative. Finally, a game not on prime time. Like the last time he didn't play on prime time, he actually looked good. So maybe this is just a curse of the primetime games, and maybe, just maybe, Russell Wilson is going to look good because it's not on prime time. That's what I'm trying to tell myself, do some mental gymnastics into starting these guys. But if I'm being honest with you, I'm fine starting Sutton. Jerry Jeudy's kind of just at the bottom of the barrel. Like, I say this a lot, and I think it's pretty funny. No one ever comments about it. No one's like, Nick, that was a funny joke. But in reality, it's like the bottom of the barrel. With Jerry Jeudy, you're like at the bottom of the ocean where those fucked up looking fishes are. Again, I'm fine starting Jeudy. But at this point, man, the fucking Broncos, it's hard to watch. It truly is. If you're a Broncos fan, I don't know how you haven't taken a bath with a toaster at this point. It is bad. Next up, we got the Texans at Raiders. KJ Hamler is going to be a sit for me. Texans at the Las Vegas Raiders. Davante Adams is a start. Obviously, you play him every single week. Now, if you got extra points for pushing some photographer, that would be great. People were worried about Davante Adams getting suspended. He was never going to get suspended. They were just going to fine him or whatever. I don't even know if they ended up fining him. I know the person is suing him. It is what it is. He should not have pushed that guy. Pretty clear. People on the internet are like, oh, he didn't even see him. So he didn't see him as he fucking full-on pushed the guy. You know, I don't give a fuck about if he pushed the guy or not, right? It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter for fantasy. But it was pretty clear that he pushed him, if I'm being honest with you. Davante Adams, got to start him every week. There's no reason for me to sit here, do some fucking deep dive Michael Phelps style here into this analysis. We all know we're starting Davante Adams, so there's no need to dwell on it. The other guys in this game, Renfrow has been a big disappointment. Renfrow looked incredibly good last year for the Raiders, but the fact that Davante Adams is now in town has kind of derailed that train. Again, I think Renfrow could see a resurgence this season, but until we see some consistency out of the boy, the man with grit, I'm not going to be starting him. Mac Hollins, like, come on. With Renfrow back, there's no way you're starting him. Brandon Cooks has not been great this season. He's had one good game a couple of weeks ago. Besides that, he's been a disaster, and he seems like just the kind of a guy that, again, he was a boring pick. The reason why I drafted him was because he was safe, consistent, always gets 1,000 yards. This year, I don't even think he's going to get 1,000 yards. This Texans team, besides Dameon Pierce, just looks like absolute dick. Just looks terrible. So yeah, I'm not very excited about Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins, these other guys. Maybe Collins ascends. Collins has had some splash games, some spark in him. But for me, I'm just kind of out on all these guys right now. This game just kind of fucking stinks, if I'm being honest with you. Next up, we got the Seahawks at the LA Chargers. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett in my pocket. Skirt are must starts every single week. Now, speaking of games that stunk, man, I thought the Cardinals versus the Seahawks was going to be this very fun game. I thought it was going to be, oh my gosh, look at this back and forth fighting. Maybe the Cardinals figured it out, right? Because the Seattle Seahawks defense is dick cheese, string cheese. They're awful. And then, you know, Arizona's going to figure it out, even though they haven't looked the best. Hollywood could have a big game. In reality, the game was a fucking snoozer. DK Metcalf, Lockett play okay. They didn't play up to my expectations. The Chargers defense played pretty good against the Broncos. But, you know, most defense can play pretty good against the Broncos. So Metcalf and Lockett are definitely starts for me. I hope this Seahawks-Chargers game lives up to what I thought the Seahawks versus Cardinals game will be. Now, the Denver Broncos defense is very legit. I'll give them that. Herbert doesn't throw a touchdown for the first time in his NFL career in a game that he starts. I think he bounces back here. I like Mike Williams. And let's be honest. Let's be honest here. Does anyone else think that Mike Williams caught that ball in overtime? Because if I'm being honest with you, look, we don't have every angle, so we can't necessarily see. I'm not saying certainty with immortal lock of the century that I'll bet my fucking life on the fact that he caught that ball, but I think he might have caught that ball, if I'm being honest with you. I kind of stared at the picture. I fucking enhanced that shit, zoomed all the way in, and was just staring at his feet like Laris in House of the Dragon, and I was like, wow, I think he caught that shit. But I didn't jerk off to it like he did to the Queen's foot. Not really a spoiler, though. I kind of made a joke about this earlier in the week. Definitely not a spoiler. If you watch those kind of shows, you just have to watch them the day of. I'm not going to spoil it that day, but the next day I might just say something crazy. Again, I'm not going to give away major plot points. Just that was a very weird scene, if I'm being honest with you. D. Eskridge is a sit. We did see him a little bit last week. Joshua Palmer, Keenan Allen. If Keenan Allen ever fucking gonna return, seems like every week I'm like, oh, here comes the Keenan Allen return game. Then he never comes back. Sucks. If he comes back this week, I'm just not going to play him. I want to see it happen first. Joshua Palmer is kind of interesting if Allen does not play. And then we got, again, like Josh Palmer, Allen, I kind of just talked about him, so I don't know why I said again. But Palmer is interesting if Allen doesn't play. If Allen plays, I'm not going to play him. I guess I would in some leagues, but in a lot of situations, I try to stay away. Next up, we got the Super Bowl rematch of the Kansas City Chiefs at the San Francisco 49ers. Mr. Juju Smith-Schuster, Mr. Corvette, hop in a motherfucking jet like that. I don't want to sing the whole song. I don't even know if those are all the lyrics because I haven't heard the song in a while. But the king of TikTok has looked a little bit more consistent recently. Now, obviously, Travis Kelce is going to continue to see a redonkulous amount of targets game in and game out for the Chiefs, and obviously he is that guy for the team, but Juju seems to be the number 2. They're going up against the Niners. The Niners defense just got torched, battered, beaten by the Atlanta Falcons. The 49ers defense is also beaten and battered by injuries. They are severely hurt. They are down astronomical, so I think Juju could have a good game. But I fucking hate starting Juju because every time I finally feel confident, I come on here, I say, guys, it's fucking Juju Smith-Schuster time. The guy ends up shitting the bed and dicking me directly in the ass, metaphorically. Not realistically. Deebo Samuel is a start. And speaking of getting dicked directly in the asshole, Brandon Ayuk last week, I was like, oh my gosh. Everyone talks about starting him. Why are we starting this guy? He scores like 8 fucking points a game. What's he gonna do here? Huh? What's he gonna do against the Falcons? Blah, blah, blah. I basically, if Brandon Ayuk heard this, which I know he doesn't give a fuck, he doesn't watch fantasy football videos, but like realistically, it felt like when I was watching the game that he heard what I said because it was not like days ago that I said this. It was like an hour before or 30 minutes before on the live show, Sunday night, or not Sunday night, before the Sunday football games are played at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I go live from 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time up until 1. So I was talking about it minutes before this man went balls deep into the Falcons defense. And I kept thinking the whole time, like, wow, I feel like an idiot. But now when I look at this, it's like, wow, he's probably going to shit the bed here, but the Chiefs defense hasn't been the best. So I think Ayuk's a fine start. MVS, Mecole Hardman, I'm going to be sitting those guys. Just too hard to predict. And then Juwan Jennings is the number 3 receiver or the number 4 option, really, because they also have George Kittle. It just, on a run-heavy team, it just doesn't seem right to start him. Now we move to Sunday night football. The Pittsburgh Steelers at the Miami Dolphins. Now, the question is, who's going to be starting Nick, Deontay Johnson, or Kenny Pickett? I think, like, based upon what Mike Tomlin said today on Tuesday, seems like Kenny Pickett is at least going to try to play. So they're at least going to move forward that Pickett is the starter, based upon what I deciphered from what Mike Tomlin said. But it could be Trubisky if he's not ready. Again, it was a concussion, and the NFL is trying to take that extremely seriously after what happened to my boy Tua Tagovailoa. So we'll see. Deontay Johnson benefits from Trubisky playing. Pickett's benefits from Pickett playing. Pickett and Pickens practice a lot in the offseason together because they're both rookies. They're working on the second team. Deontay Johnson practiced a lot with Mitch Trubisky, so they have a good connection. I'm still starting Deontay Johnson, regardless of who the quarterback is. But if Trubisky's the guy, I am way lower on Pickens, and if I'm being honest with you, I think I would sit him. But again, we're recording this on Tuesday. We don't have all that information right now, and I don't even think we'll have all that information until Sunday. Tyreek Hill, Jalen waddled away, waddle, fumbled the game away, up against the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, I'm a Dolphins fan, so I'm not, I'm making a joke about it, but in reality, it is what it is, right? The guy's played for us since his rookie year last year. He's been fucking amazing. He makes one mistake. It is what it is, right? You have one bad decision or one bad play. I mean, on that play, he was gaining a zillion yards. He's looked incredible, even with Teddy Bridgewater in at points. But Tua's back. Guess who's back? Back again. Tua's back. Tell your friends. Guess who's back? Yeah. Don't want to get copyrighted for how I sing just like Eminem, but Tyreek Hill and Waddle, we're starting them. Hill is on track to potentially smash Megatron's record for the most receiving yards in a year. Guy's on fire. He could do it with anyone at quarterback. He could do it with me at quarterback. Jalen Waddle's been decent. We're firing them both out. But Nick, the Steelers defense looked good against the Bucs last week. Well, the Bucs are fucking broken, and I think Tua's going to come out and slap the shit out of Brian Flores. I hope he actually slaps him. That bastard got our pick docked this year. Again, I'm a Dolphins fan, but when I talk about fantasy football, I talk like a fan of the team, but in reality, I'm giving you the actual analysis. You guys know I'm a Dolphins fan at this point, though. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and like, but I guess now you know if you're new. But if you're someone who watches all these videos, and look, if you're someone who's watching 30-plus minutes into the video, you probably enjoy what I'm talking about, so you probably know I'm a Dolphins fan. But yeah, I love the Dolphins. I hope that Tua comes out here and absolutely butt fucks the Steelers without the use of any lube. I like Hill and Waddle in this spot. Chase Claypool packing some dip. You can't talk when you put your tongue to the bottom of your mouth like you're packing some dip. But yeah, Chase Claypool had a good game. Packed some dip after the game. But in reality, do we really expect much out of Claypool going forward? Cedric Wilson has been... what the fuck did we pay this guy for? Next up, we move to the final game here, Monday Night Football. The beers and the Chicago, that's what you're going to need to drink. Just a copious amount of beers to enjoy this game. The Bears at the Patriots. The Bailey Zappinator. The Zappinator. You make me very, very zappy. Happy. So funny. Jacoby Myers is a start. Didn't play that well last week with Zappy, but he has played good with Zappy, so I'm not really too worried, and the Bears defense isn't very good. Tyquan Thornton had his real first start last week, looked really good, really fast, looks built like Kevin Durant, but still really good, just like Kevin Durant, so I like Thornton in this game, but Thornton is kind of one of those risky plays, because again, we've only seen one big game out of him. He's kind of like Wan'Dale Robinson, but I just trust the Bears to smack the shit, I don't trust the Bears to smack the shit out of the Patriots. I just trust the Patriots to soak the Chicago Bears. I'm not talking about the soak, like where what religion is that? Mormon, where you just stick your cock inside of the girl and then you don't move. And then you have your friend smack the bed underneath so you can go up and down, but you're not actually having sex. You're not having sex, according to Mormonism. I don't know if that's actually real or not, but I do know soaking is real. But at the end of the day here, I like Tyquan Thornton and Jacoby Myers. Definitely more confident in Myers, though. Darnell, here comes the Mooney. Mooney. Dollar bills, y'all. Darnell Mooney has been a guy that has been playing better. Round of applause to him. I thought he was going to be a complete bust this year. He still is. But maybe Fields going to keep throwing him the ball. Then maybe I'll want to start him. But I don't want to start him against the Patriots. Not against the Patriots. This Patriots defense has looked incredible. Dante Pettis is a sit. Equimania St. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, his brother, is a sit. And then Devontae Paca is a sit as well. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hitting that like button. It would help me out a ton. If you do want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. And if you do have any questions about week number 7, make sure to leave them down below in the comment section. And please make sure, if you like money, to take the BetMGM NBA no-brainer offer. Now, if you're not watching this today on, what's today? Tuesday. Still work tomorrow. Work the next day, but it's only for a limited time. It's not going to be here forever, so make sure you guys check that out. Again, if you place any pre-game moneyline bet in the NBA, $10 on any team, if there's a three-pointer in that game, you will win $200 in free bets. Make sure you have to be a new user, and click the link in the video description or the pinned comment. Make sure you guys check that out. I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day, and as always, good boy! you.